All right. Looks like we are all in. So thank you again for coming. And today's presentation is titled The Mysterious World of Your Digestive System. And the digestive system, like many other systems in our body, is one of those invisible structures. We start paying attention to it only when it starts having some issues and gives us problem. Otherwise, we go about our day hardly ever thinking about complexities and nuances of this system that really, when you think about that, is a gateway to keeping us alive and well. Because without fluids and foods that our digestive system processes, no other system in the body would have enough fuel to work and be well for any substantial length of time. We all were exposed to digestive system at some point, probably in high school with a graphic like this one, but well, we were in high school and we had very different things on our mind. So today we will do a bit of catching up and we will focus on our digestive system, a system that I personally see as one of the most interesting and most fascinating. And together we will start discovering some of its mysteries. This is going to be a two-part webinar. Today, we will talk about the digestive system in general, and we will discuss what happens when everything functions well. We will also discuss something called gut flora, and the next month, we will focus on things going wrong. So if you have questions, about acid reflux or diarrhea, for example, by all means, please share them in the chat. We will gather them, but I may not necessarily answer them today. What I may do, however, is to make sure that they are answered during the next webinar. So your questions will be either answered today or they will help shape next month's session. Either way, please type away if you have any questions. And if you cannot participate in the next month's live session, which is designed as part 2, please still register and you will receive the recording and you will be able to watch it at your convenience. So either way, you don't want to miss it. If you would like your answers sooner, before the next month, you can always call your Food and Friends dietitian and we will be very happy to discuss your questions with you. I will list phone numbers to all of us on the last slide at the end of the presentation. So you will be able to write the phone number down. And if you don't know who your dietitian is, just call any one of us and we will direct you accordingly. Okay? So the first thing that we need to clarify about digestive system, are you guys ready for that? It is not an internal system the way we think about that normally because it's inside of our body. It is actually an external system. Our body is, in a sense, like a bead. We can draw string through digestive system from our mouth through every section of it, and the string would come out on the other end via anus. The graphic on this slide show your digestive system from the most complex representation on the left, how it actually sits and fits in our body, to somewhat unrolled graphic of the digestive system to show you this hollow tube-like structure that goes through us, like a basically hole in a bead. Everything that you eat stays in this tube of digestive system, and at every step it gets broken down and assessed. Okay, it is going to be accepted and absorbed to fuel your body, or it is going to be rejected, spitted out, vomited, or pooped out. Think about everything that you ate in your life. And I'm not only talking about your food, but I am talking about pieces of plastic that maybe fell into the salad bowl because you opened salad bag in a rush. Think if you were biting your nails or chewing on pencils when you were a kid. Think about shoving a handful of dirt into your mouth because, well, you were curious about its taste. Or think about that penny that you decided to swallow as a dare. When I was in a kindergarten, we thought it would be just simply hilarious to have wormies in our tummies, so yours truly was swallowing rubber bands. Think about accidentally swallowed cherry pits, chewing gums, residuals of numbing medicine at your dentist office. All these things are examined and assessed by, in some cases, very, very delicate cells along your digestive system. So now that we established that our digestive system is effectively a superactive hollow tube going through our bodies, let's appreciate how long it is. An average digestive system is about 30 feet long. That's a long way from a bite of salad to poop. And it is not really your digestive system alone that is involved in assessing the food that you are going to eat. Your eyes and your nose have very important jobs to do as well. Your eyes can actually alert the digestive system about the upcoming feast. Imagine that you are at the party at your Aunt Mary's and she's preparing foods. Your eyes are scanning countertops and you are all excited. The food is coming, the food is coming. You may actually start feeling hungry. Have you ever felt like you were salivating before you even took a bite of the food? Well, this is exactly what I am talking about. Your eyes and your nose will team up in identifying certain foods. It's chicken, it's broccoli, it's macaroni and cheese. Oh my goodness, it's her secret recipe cheesecake. The cells in our noses detect the smells and literally scream over each other to the brain, sending the messages. This is why we sometimes can notice the smell before we can identify the source. Like in situation where we sniff around and say, something smells funny here, right? And then what happens, we start playing a detective with our noses, and then we discover the origin of the pleasant or funny or rotten smell. The nose and eyes are working till the very end, right up to the moment you put your food into your mouth. And you may detect something stinky and think that something went bad, but Aunt Mary would never serve something rotten, but you sure smell it. So what do? You discreetly move a leaf of lettuce on your fork, only to discover that there are crumbles of blue cheese in the salad. Your eyes and your nose help you make the determination whether the fork loaded with foodstuff should actually end up in your mouth. This is why we may shake shredded cheese and look at it closely to assess if it's still good, or smell milk before pouring ourselves a glass. And mouth? Oh my goodness, guys, it needs to be in the Guinness record book. Your tongue is the most flexible, non-smooth muscle. Your jaw muscles are the most powerful muscles in your body. Your tooth enamel is the hardest thing that your body produces. And it has to be because your teeth can exert a pressure of up to 180 pounds. That's the weight of a grown man. So when you are chewing your food, it's like a team of football players jumping and stomping on your food before you swallow it. Your tongue is like a coach that orchestrates and navigates everything that is happening in the mouth. It guides food towards the throat so it can be easily and safely swallowed. And it also scoops the food from the cheeks to be further chewed. While what's happening in the mouth is like a team of football players randomly stomping on everything and basically going wild, what's happening when you swallow the food is a perfectly coordinated operation. The soft palate and constrictor muscles are working in the team, closing the entry to the nose and your windpipe so that you don't end up with soup in your lungs. This movement is so powerful that you can actually hear it as a dual pop when you swallow loudly. Your vocal cords are silenced. After all, you don't want to babble when cream of mushroom soup is just about to splashily slide down your throat. And finally, epiglottis raises, the base of your mouth in the back lowers, and the food is pushed down the esophagus like a kid on a water slide. It is a powerful and coordinated movement, and again, you can feel it when you put your hand on your neck when you swallow. The food goes down the esophagus, pushed by coordinated movement of the esophagus muscles. If you look at the graph, you will notice that it opens in front of the food and then closes right behind it. And then again, it opens in front of the food and closes right behind you. What it does, it prevents the food from coming back up and allows it to continue its journey down into the stomach. And if all works well, you are very aware of any food going down and any movement once you swallow. You can think of the movement in the esophagus as a wave made by the fans on the stadium or a breakdancer doing the warm move. And what's really amazing about this part of your eating is that it has actually nothing to do with gravity. Obviously, you eat the right side up, but if you were to put a piece of cake into your mouth and then stand on your head, the food would still end up in your stomach and not in your nose or in your ears. Between the esophagus and the stomach, on the top of the stomach, right here, there is the first sphincter or a muscle that basically serves as a doorman that allows the food from esophagus to smoothly plop into the stomach. Once it happens, the doorman closes that door very, very quickly and tries to keep the door closed tight so that very strong acid from stomach does not splash back into our esophagus. You can think about that as very quickly lifting a top on the pot to put something into the pot and then immediately closing it again with the cover. The strong and rather thick walls of the stomach, they are used to dealing with stomach acid, so it's fine for them. But the very, very delicate cells of the esophagus are really not used to it. And if stomach acid splashes up on them and burns them, we are experiencing what we sometimes refer to as heartburn. The doorman on the top of the stomach really wants to prevent that from happening. And once the food passes through the first door right here, it blissfully lands in the stomach. And this is really the first stop after this crazy ride down. The food just falls here almost like into a hammock. The stomach can stretch significantly. Empty and relaxed stomach, if you were to eat but actually not stretch it, would hold only about 2.5 ounces of food. It would vary by food, but it would be about a size of a golf ball or an egg. Fully stretched stomach can hold the amount of about a box of milk. When the food starts coming down to the stomach, it will swing gently, propelling movements in the intestines. It is to notify the rest of the digestive system that the food is just about to come down. That motion gets the entire digestive system moving. So if you are one of these people who poop right after eating, that's why. It is your body getting ready for processing the food that you just ate. You are not eliminating the food that you just ate. You are getting rid of the waste from the previous meals. So if this is how your body works, great, and keep it up. When you eat, your stomach and your brain communicate. And what's really interesting is that those both organs really need time to communicate properly. So if you were ever so hungry and you ate in a rush or without paying any attention really, and then you collapsed on the couch saying, "Oh my gosh, I am so stuffed," what it tells you is that you ate so fast that the communication between your stomach and your brain was broken. These two organs were simply not able to keep up with how fast you were eating. So please, if you are a fast eater, slow down, because the pleasure of your meal will increase and you will also be more likely to eat less because, well, it will be easier for you to detect when you are actually getting full. The food in the stomach will spend several hours, and the doorman on the bottom of the stomach, so basically on the bottom of the stomach and the entry to the small intestine, which is right here, will be very, very strict about when the foodstuffs are moving down. Easy to process food like some Simple carbohydrates can take only about 2 hours of squishing and mushing in the stomach, but things like a steak, for example, will need significantly more time, even 6 hours before that doorman lets what used to be a cow into your small intestine. This is precisely why foods high in carbohydrates, simple carbohydrates, are not keeping us full. We may have a good sized meal and be hungry 2 hours later. Protein, fats, and fiber will keep us full for much longer. Once the food is all nice and mushy, the doorman on the bottom of the stomach will let all that stuff go down into small intestine. And if you think that everything that we talked about up to this point is fascinating, think again, because the small and large intestine are where all the magic happens. So small intestine is clean and bright pink, and it looks more like something from the coral reef rather than inside of human body. And many people are actually surprised and amazed even when they have a chance to see a good shot and good close-up of a small intestine. And this is basically how it looks like. If you were to look at it from a much, much closer distance, you would see that it's covered in little finger-like structures that we call villi, and those are covered with microvilli. They are here to increase absorption of foods even more. Each of them has special gates and doorways and train cars to pick up all the nutrients that body needs, like sugars and amino acids. Proteins are made of amino acids, and fats, vitamins, and minerals. And stuff in the small intestine always moves forward. This is actually the motto of a small intestine. Move on, move forward, keep going. It's called peristaltic reflex, and that, combined with such large absorption area, makes our absorption so effective. There are two things actually that are worth mentioning here. The first one, your small intestine is not going to do all that detailed, intricate, and amazing digestive work when it feels that something is wrong. If something is wrong, it will hit the eject button, it will say everything up, and you will simply throw up. So don't expect your small intestine to play around and goof up unless, and this is the second thing worth mentioning, unless one of those players in the game is fiber. As you may know, some fibers are indigestible. When they pass stomach, undigested fibers enter the small intestine and they poke gently on those little finger-like structure called villi. Villi respond by gently pushing back. It is a little bit like fiber and villi play a tag, and all that movement makes them, well, stay fit and stay healthy and stay engaged. It also makes food pass a bit quicker as well. So this is why fiber is so good for you. This is why it's so good for your digestion and the health of your digestive system in general. Now, stomach and small intestine are sticklers for cleanliness. If you were actually living with them, there would never be any dirty dish in the sink or any crumb on the floor. When digestion is over, the doorman between the stomach and intestine graciously opens the door again and allows the stomach cleaning crew sweep everything into small intestine. And then small intestine, you already know what it's doing. It's moving everything forward again and washes all these leftovers and undigested stuffs down the stream, so to speak. This cleaning process is called migrating motor complex. And again, you know when it happens. It happens when you hear your tummy rumble. It is actually not your tummy rumbling. It is your small intestine rumbling. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you are hungry. It means that the digestion job is done, everything is taken care of, trash is taken out, dishes are washed, floors are swept, and your stomach and small intestine are ready for another batch of work whenever you are ready to eat. Digestion and absorption are of uttermost important. So if you are snacking frequently, there is really no time for your stomach and your small intestine to clean up because, well, they are constantly working. This is why some people say that having meals spaced out is more beneficial because it allows your stomach to clean up and get a break between the meals. But there are also situations in which frequent small meals may be more important than cleaning session for the gut. For example, when you are going through chemo treatment, or if you have difficulties eating as it is, smaller and more frequent meals will be, at this point, more important. The undigested pieces of corn, yes, we don't really digest corn, so you may see it in your poop, and that's okay. That piece of plastic from the salad bag that I mentioned earlier, some dying bacteria, whole bunch of digesting juices, indigestible fiber that already played with your small intestine, and maybe a piece of gum that you swallowed by mistake. All those things will continue their journey from small intestine into the large intestine. But before they enter the relaxed world of large intestine, they will need to pass through the door called Bowen's valve. Thanks goodness for this passage because small intestine and large intestine are very different, and quite frankly, I could not imagine these two being direct neighbors without even a tiny fence marking their plots of land. Small intestine, as you already know, has a motto, move on, move forward. You can almost hear it say, chop, 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 move, come on, move. The large intestine on the other side, on the other hand, ladies and gentlemen, is big, thick, chilled tube that barely moves. It will squeeze every once in a while, and then it will relax again. You can think of your large intestine like a cat on a sun-covered warm floor. It will move just a bit. It will change position every so often. It will stretch and then relax again. But for long pieces of time, it will appear more or less motionless. The body wants all the time it needs to absorb the water here. The bacteria in your large intestine want all the time they can have to chow down on all that lovely undigested fiber, and quite frankly, they want it to be a feast, not a rushed, eat in the car style affair. And at the end of the large intestine, pooping happens, and you, your brain, and two very special muscles all have something to say in that matter. So once or two times or three times a day, your large intestine will open one eye, squeeze once or twice a little bit harder just to move the stuff just a little bit forward. The first muscle will receive the signal, and you know when it happens. This is this I need to go feeling. But you cannot go. You are still at Aunt Mary's, and she would be gravely offended if you used her bathroom like that. Besides, you had that bean chili yesterday, and she still did not serve her secret recipe cheesecake. And, well, you also need to make it home. So you and your brain send a message to the second muscle saying, hey, you know what? It's not a good time. And again, you know when it happens because, well, you control it. That feeling of squeezing the butt to stop yourself from going is exactly what I am talking about here. The first, I need to go muscle gets the message from squeezing the butt muscle that it is not a good time to go. And like large intestine in general, it will chill out again. But sometime later, it will give you again this I need to go feeling. And hopefully by then, you will be able to go and use the bathroom. Last segment of your large intestine is emptied, so trash is taken out. Both muscles, the I need to go and squeezing the butt muscles are super happy because pooping happened. You feel better, and meantime, foods from another meal, maybe oatmeal with strawberries and almonds, are gently rocking in the hammock of your stomach. Finger-like villi are getting all excited about what's coming their way, and lovely bacteria in your lazy like a cat large intestine are looking forward to another feast, and the whole cycle continues. Before we move forward, we also need to discuss liver, pancreas, and gallbladder. These are not part of the digestive system proper, in a sense that they do not form the hollow tube of the digestive system, but those are organs that are closely attached to it and provide great support when it comes to digestion. Pancreas produces many hormones and pancreatic juices that are of our interest today. Pancreatic juices contain bicarbonate that neutralizes harsh acid entering from the stomach, and digestive system that help break foods into nutrients that the small intestine will be able to absorb. Liver, an interesting fact, liver is the biggest organ in the human body. On average, it weighs about 3 pounds and it is the size of a football ball. It has many, many, many functions in the body, and one of these functions is production of bile. And bile is yellowish brownish liquid that helps body to digest fats. Since liver is so big and busy, it needs a sidekick, and it has one in a form of a gallbladder. Gallbladder is a pear, or some people say elongated bean-like shaped organ that collects the bile that liver produces. It concentrates it and it squirts it into your small intestine when there is fat that needs to be digested. You can literally think about gallbladder like you think about a bottle of dish detergent that you squirt into a sink full of greasy dishes after Thanksgiving dinner. So this is a very, very general overview of the digestive system from fork to poop, so to speak. And pretty much everything in this description so far is working the way it's supposed to. Well, maybe with the exception of the party at Aunt Mary's running exceptionally long and you not being able to go to the bathroom right away. But there are many things that can go wrong in the digestive system. And unfortunately, in many cases, a lot of it is just our wrongdoing. Taking care of your digestive system is critical because really, when you think about that, this is the gateway to your entire body. Nearly everything that goes into the body gets through the digestive system first. And all the itsy bitsy cells and nerves in our mouth and esophagus and stomach and then small and then large intestine, all those sections get in contact with everything that comes in. Each particle is being assessed and evaluated as something good and beneficial or something that needs to be eliminated. And it will be either sent back up by throwing up or down to poop if this is something that body cannot use. So we want the system to work well because our entire health really depends on what these cells do and how they function. 80% of our immune system is in our gut. And with that, you want to keep your immune system strong and well, and you will help with that by keeping your digestive system healthy. And finally, your intestines are home to billions and billions of bacteria. We call that phenomenon gut microbiome or gut flora. Imagine your intestines with all the bacteria in it as a garden. How well is your garden kept? How many flowers are growing there? Any desirable flowers or just weeds that took over everything? Are there patches of soil that are so depleted that almost nothing wants to grow on them? Are you tending to this garden at all, giving it plant food, or are you throwing there whatever and the whole garden is basically full of junk? We are discovering that how our inside garden in our gut looks like impacts our health. In the past, we really didn't pay any attention to bacteria in the gut, even if we knew about it. Then we thought that bacteria in the gut impacts only function of the gut, which at the time made sense. There was this thought that gut bacteria impacts things like regular bowel movement. But now we know and we understand that the bacteria in our intestines can impact our entire well-being. Improvements in gut flora reduce signs of depression, ADHD, and many other seemingly non-diet related diseases. There is research discovering that some strains of bacteria are responsible for us staying slim or becoming obese. Yes, that is correct. Diet, of course, plays very, very important role here. So does exercise and good sleep and overall well-being. Hormones and medications also will have something to say when it comes to our weight, but we are also discovering that the bacteria in our gut may have influence on our weight as well. It is a very exciting discovery and also the one that makes the whole conversation about weight that much more complex. So it is possible that in future, the conversation centered around weight loss will be not only about what are you eating, but it will be also about how are you feeding bacteria in your gut, how healthy your bacteria is. We may have the same conversation when it comes to depression and mood disorders. We already know 100% that people with these conditions have unbalanced and not healthy gut flora. So now researchers are asking the chicken egg question. Are these individuals depressed because their guts are upset? Or is depression impacting or influencing what's happening in the gut? Do we need to reduce depression to improve the health of the gut? Or maybe we just need to refeed the gut appropriately for the depression to pretty much to go away. It looks like the question of this amazing garden in our intestines becomes more and more prominent in all the conversations about overall health. So, what are we talking about exactly here? How many bacteria do we really have in our gut? Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about trillions and trillions of them. When a baby is ready to be born, but it is still in the sterile environment of the womb, it is made of 100% human cells. The first contact with bacteria that the baby has is actually in the birth canal, and this contact may be very important for future health of this person. By the time this baby becomes an adult and gets exposed to internal and external bacteria, the number of bacterial cells on and within our body will be 10 times bigger than the number of our original human cells. In other words, our being is made up in 10% of human cells and 90% of bacterial cells, or in other words, for one human cell, there are 9 bacterial cells. More current and maybe more cautious research suggests half-half or 50% to 50% ratio, but still the number of bacteria living with us or within us is overwhelmingly large. And while this concept, especially when introduced, may seem creepy and dirty and gross and just yucky all around, think about it more as us humans being part of the ecosystem, part of this beautiful world that we live in. We know 100% that kids who are playing in the mud, kids who are outside playing with maybe farm animals and being joyfully kissed by dogs, end up being much healthier adults than the kids that were always clean and always had their hands cleaned with hand sanitizer, 15 times a day. These bacteria that live on us and within us frequently protects us as well, sometimes by simply taking space in our gut and making it impossible for the bad bacteria to grow and take the root. They support our digestion, they support our immunity. And when you think about that, if they, as species, want to flourish, it is also in their interest to keep us, their hosts, healthy. So now the $1,000,000 question is what we as humans do to keep them and ourselves in the process healthy. Thank you for your attention. We will move to Q&A session very shortly, but before we do that, I really would like to give a huge credit and huge thank you to Julia Enders, who is an author of the book titled Gut, the Inside Story of Our Body's Most Underrated Organ. And I have to say, guys, that without this book, this presentation in this form simply wouldn't be possible. And if what we were talking about today spiked your interest and you would like to learn more, I cannot recommend this book enough. You will laugh out loud and you will learn so much more about your digestive system and about your gut microbiome. I promise it's fun. It's a super light, entertaining read. It's just dynamite. It's fantastic. So I am going to open the floor for Q&A, and as promised, the RD info is here as well. I am going to leave that slide on to give you time to write down the title and or name of your dietitian if you need it. And again, if you have any questions related to this topic and you don't want to wait till next month, or if you have any other questions, you can give us a call. We will be happy to talk to you, and we will take it from there.
All right. Thank you so much, Agata. That was so wonderful. I know as I was just sitting here, taking a few sips of coffee, even I was inspired to have more appreciation for my digestive system and everything that is going on with that. I see we have a few questions popping up in the Q&A. Yes, everyone, please share your questions in the Q&A box or in the chat. I am going to put a link in the chat right now to a survey that we would love to have you take. I'll share it again, before we wrap up, but just wanted to share it now. I just entered that link, and if you have just a minute after the webinar to take this quick survey, we would really appreciate your feedback. Okay, so we've got a few questions. The first one is, thank you very much for such a wonderful presentation. I have one question. Do you have any tips for eating more mindfully and slowing down while eating to help with getting in touch with fullness cues?
Yes. So there are couple tips. Where I usually start with that is try to assess your eating environment, and then try to set it up in a way that eating is actually the only thing that is happening. Okay. Sometimes we will eat lunch or dinner and check the news or check the email or watch the TV, or maybe we are having dinner and preparing lunch for the next day to work. And then basically what happens, eating becomes this secondary activity that is kind of happening somewhere in the background. And what happens is we don't really pay any attention to the fullness cues simply because we are focused on the other activity that we are doing at this point in time. The second thing to do would be to really try to find a time and space to eat mindfully, and you can start with something very, very simple and very quick, like just having a small snack and literally have 5 minutes to do that. It requires a little bit of intention and planning and setting, but it is a very, very small price tag up front for the fact that you are feeling a little bit better afterwards. Another thing, chew slowly and chew carefully. Sometimes people will eat very, very fast. What sometimes helps is trying to smell the food before you actually take the bite. Try to engage all other senses into the eating process. Cooking in general and eating can be very therapeutic, because when you think about that, this is the only thing that engages all the senses. If you are working with the pottery or painting, you are obviously not eating those things. There are some other, arts and crafts that you don't necessarily hear, whereas you will hear the onion sizzling on the frying pan. So take that apple and, feel it before you take a bite. Once you take a bite, pay attention to how juicy or how dry it is. Maybe when you have piece of a bell pepper, break it with your hand to kind of see, the cells crashing and opening and releasing the juices and the smell as well. What some people will do, they will intentionally eat in a way that isn't typical for them. So for example, they will try to hold a fork in a left hand if they are right-handed, so that it changes a little bit the way they are eating. So those are probably the good thing to start with, but paying attention to the food itself before we take a bite and making sure that eating is the only activity that we are focusing on, is probably a good start.
Love that. Thank you for sharing. I see it looks like we've had a few people that have joined recently. So if you joined recently, we're in our Q&A session, asking and answering questions about all the different aspects of the digestive system, particularly, the normal functions and healthy function of the digestive system. And we'll be sending out the recording so you can take a look at the part of the presentation that you may have missed and want to catch up on. I had a question I wanted to ask Agata. What do you think is one of the best things that most people can do to help support a healthy digestive system?
Okay, I will sound like pretty much every dietitian here because it so happens that the foods that are healthy for us, generally in terms of our general body, are also overwhelmingly healthy for our digestive system and gut flora as well. So introducing a lot of vegetables and fruits, and please notice the order here is vegetables and fruits, not fruits and vegetables. And what's really beautiful about produce is that they will provide both soluble and insoluble fiber. And both are absolutely critical for good bowel movement. And also with that, we are making sure that things are moving through the digestive system and are being eliminated in a timely manner. The non-digestible fiber is also the one that will be playing tag with the villi in our small intestine, which also adds additional kind of health benefits. Literally, it's like exercise for your small intestine, which is very, very good. So definitely starting with the produce, fresh vegetables, fresh fruits. Go for the variety. I always say variety, look at the color. You don't need to know much about vitamins and minerals and what is where. Just look at the color, because color is really Mother's Nature way of communicating with us what's in the foods. So while broccoli and kale and collard greens are really, really good for you, you want to make sure that there are also vegetables that have different colors. So when you are shopping, you may think, okay, let me have something green on Monday and maybe something red like beets or bell pepper on Tuesday, and maybe something yellow like zucchini on Wednesday, and so on. So think vegetables and fruits and think color. So we covered produce, we covered fiber. Another thing that you really can add here is very specific type of fiber. It's called inulin, and it can be found in onions and garlic and like green onions, scallions, basically foods of this type. Inulin is like a fiber treat for your gut bacteria, and your gut bacteria absolutely loves it. So when you are making salad, maybe chopping in a little bit of onion, maybe chopping a little bit of green onions, cooking with garlic, cooking with onion, all those things will be very beneficial. And then some people will be adding prebiotics and probiotics. I will get to the definitions in a moment. And you can get them in form of supplementation, but what's really much better is actually having some of those in form of food, and just have a little bit, every day, or couple times a day. And some of the best sources of those bacteria are fermented foods. So when you are thinking yogurt and kefir, for example, go for the plain versions. To look at the food label if you have to, but you are much better sweetening the plain yogurt with your own fruit. Then there is a fruit and you kind of know the content of what's in your bowl, and you are not getting additional kind of added sugar with that. So your yogurt, your kefir, but also other fermented foods like kimchi or sauerkraut. When you are going to start with kimchi or sauerkraut, be very careful, especially if those are the foods that you are not used to, because they can cause a little bit of revolution in the digestive system. So really start slowly. And when I say start slowly, I mean literally like a forkful, to basically get your digestive system kind of adjusted to this type of fermented food. But over time, if they become part of your regular diet, it will be absolutely fantastic. And they are also cheaper than many of the supplements. Prebiotics and probiotics. So probiotics are your bacteria, the live bacteria that you are getting in the yogurt or in the sauerkraut. By the way, chopping a little bit of fresh onion into your sauerkraut is a perfect combination here, because you are providing the inulin here. So my goodness, I lost my train. Okay, probiotics. So this is the bacteria. Prebiotic, think about that like a food for your bacteria. Okay, so if you are going to have a wonderful family member or a neighbor that comes into your house and lives with you, but in a process of living also cleans up your house and does the laundry and cleans up the fridge and does all the other good stuff around the house, you will want to keep that person around. So you would probably put some nice treats into the fridge to make sure that the person stays encouraged to stay longer. So the prebiotics are basically treats for your bacteria to be healthy and content in your digestive system. Okay.
Great suggestions. Thank you. A couple of things I see someone has their hand raised. We are in the webinar mode, so we cannot see or hear you, but if you do have a question or comment, please share that in the chat or in the Q&A section. And then Agata had also mentioned this at the beginning, but if you have specific questions that you'd like to discuss more in detail, about your own personal situation or health or your needs. And if you are a Food and Friends client, I definitely encourage you to reach out to your Food and Friends dietitian to kind of discuss that more one-on-one. And then I also see we have a question about watching the meeting, rewatching the meeting. No worries about if you had trouble getting into Zoom. We've all been there for sure. And the good news is we are recording this webinar, and we'll be sending out a link to the recording very soon to everyone who registered. So whether you were here the whole time or if you were not able to be here the whole time, either one is fine, and we'll be sending you the recording for you to watch or rewatch anytime at your convenience. So you'll definitely have access to this meeting and information. So with that, I think we have kind of addressed all of the questions that I see. Are there any other questions or comments currently? I'm also going to put put again in the chat the link to our survey, which we would love to have you take and share your thoughts on this webinar, ideas for future webinars. It won't take long at all to take the survey, but we would love to hear any comments or feedback that you would like to share. And yeah, I think we have addressed like all of the questions that we received. So thank you so much, Agata. I'll kind of turn it over to you to wrap up as you see fit.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating today. And like I said at the beginning, this is part one of the presentation. Part two is coming next month. If you have any questions that you may have after this presentation that you want to have answered sooner, feel free to reach out to a dietitian here at Food and Friends. One of the questions in the survey is actually about, if you have any questions related specifically to digestive system, please type it here. So feel free to do that, and I will gather all those questions and try to weave them into presentation next month. That way it will be a little bit more interactive. Okay, thank you very much for joining us today. I am going to stop recording and we will be wrapping up this session today. Thank you. Have a good rest of the day and hopefully see you next month. Take care. Bye bye.